Martin Donovan. And last but not least, the screenwriter and a Vanity Fair special correspondent, Gabe Sherman. Welcome, everyone. So there's a lot to talk about. Sebastian, I'm going to start with you. You don't look like Donald Trump. I couldn't help but notice.
So did our director. Very early on.
And when I first saw the film, there were a couple of things that jumped out at me right away that were very distinctively Trump, and it was the way you moved your mouth, which I had never noticed before, but now it's all I can see. And then also your walk. And I wanted to ask you about what it was like to transform into this, character who's also a very, very familiar person in all of our lives, and how that physical transformation took place, what it was like at the beginning, and how it took you over.
Yeah, listen, I mean, it was a very daunting situation. Obviously, there's a lot of ideas about this person and noise and plenty that we have out there, and I was just trying to cut through all of it and get down back to the basics and the beginning of everything and what's at the heart of the matter, at least what I was searching for. And in terms of the things that you're referring to, it's really a very technical process, like playing an instrument. You have to sit there every morning or night or day, and you get better at it every day. You start out slowly, and you're conscious of it, you're doing it, it's boring, it's by rote, and then eventually one day you wake up and it's kind of like there, you're not thinking about it. But there had to be obviously things about him that are familiar and that I had to kind of find a way to get them in there without, not too much, not too little, and build it over time, and that's something we worked on and we're conscious of. But the idea was always to try to find a human being.
And Jeremy, how much did you know about Roy Cohn when you took this role?
I think I mainly knew about Roy through Tony Kushner's work and through Angels in America, and I'd seen Ron Lehman do it on stage, and I'd seen Pacino in the Mike Nichols film, and I almost didn't do the film for that alone, because it felt like it had been done so brilliantly and definitively. But Matt Tiernauer made a documentary a couple of years ago called Written by Roy Cohn that I had seen, and he's a fascinating human being who a lot of people think is a personification of evil, and but it was like, I think we both felt a little bit like the guy Philip Petit walking across the Trade Center, on a wire. This one, the level of risk involved and how badly you could just crash and burn, and I think that drew us towards it, and also, and Gabe said this in a great piece for you guys last week, like, we do live in such a hyper-polarized time where we either deify or demonize these people, and Roy Cohn has been almost only demonized and portrayed as a monster. And while I do think he was guilty of really unconscionable things and incalculable damage to people's lives, I feel like your job is to sort of see feelingly and find your way into the human being and try and embody that. So, yeah.
So on that note, I'll throw it on to Gabe. Gabe, tell the audience a little bit about where this script came from.
Well, the movie and the screenplay is as old as my 7-year-old daughter. I'm a journalist, and I've been writing about Trump on and off for almost 20 years now, which is scary, how old I am now. So I was covering Trump's 2016 campaign for then New York Magazine, and I was struck by something that Roger Stone and other people who had known Donald and Roy since the 80s said to me that Trump really was just using the lessons that Roy Cohn taught him, where they would say things like, you know, he sounds a lot like Roy when he does these rallies. And it kind of just came to me in a flash that there could be a compelling drama that focuses on this central relationship and really the origin story, because, you know, obviously Trump is this larger-than-life figure, but he didn't come out of the womb that way. So it was really a dramatic exploration of how he was formed by this relationship, and obviously, you know, I'm just grateful that, you know, Sebastian and Jeremy and Maria brought these characters to life. And, you know, tonight Roger Stone tweeted that, you know, he had seen the film and that the, you know, Jeremy's performance of Roy was uncannily accurate. I just think that's a testament to, no matter like what your partisan background is, people are finding the humanity in these characters, and it's gratifying because that was the intent of the film.
Ali? I know. That's the review we all wait for. Roger Stone. 2 thumbs up. So
Academy Award before your Academy Award.
So Ali, there's something about Donald Trump and Roy Cohn that's a very American story, and you come to it with the perspective of someone who's part Iranian, part Danish. Yes, okay. How do you see this story, sort of like from 1,000 feet up?
You know, I see it as how easy it is for Democrats to become Republicans and Republicans to become Democrats, and how, you know, liberals go to the same Met Galas and as conservatives, and how the kids go to the same schools, and how, you know, the same people who are bashing Donald Trump sort of gave him a lot of airtime, you know, gave him a lot of space, clickbaited him for years, and now they're complaining. You know, I grew up in Iran, and when you're in the Middle East, you have this, it's almost like you're living downstream from this palace, you know, and the sewage goes through, you know, where you live. It doesn't matter if it's an environmentally conscious king, you know, the shit's gonna go down there anyways. So that's sort of how the U.S. Policies has been affecting Middle East. It doesn't matter if it's a Democratic president or Republican president. We're gonna get the short and the stick anyway. So what I mean by that is, I think my way of viewing the U.S. political system is sort of devoid, or it doesn't go through the party lines. I don't buy this sort of, you know, Democrats are the savior, Republicans are evil, or Republicans are patriots, and they're not. And therefore, I think it's much easier for me to see these people as human beings, either in a dramatic way or maybe in a more anthropological way. And that's what drew me to the project also, you know, because I think that, you know, when Gabe maybe came to me with this, I was thinking it's going to be hippies. I was thinking like, okay, well, with all this sort of polarizing, notion about him, this is going to be, okay, you know, this is a guy who knows all his dirty secrets. And, you know, the interesting thing was there was a real ambition to understand these people and to connect to these people and say, okay, you know, Roy might have been a despicable person, but he was also generous to his friends. He might have represented all the 5 mob families in New York at the same time, but he could also recite, you know, Persian poetry from 1,000 years ago. So that colorfulness, that complexity, I thought that was worth exploring. And also, it's fun to be riding on the back of the dragon. I have to admit.
We will take those words to heart in the weeks before the election. I'm kind of curious to hear from all of you, whoever wants to jump in. What do you well, two things. What was one of the things that you learned, whether about the character you were playing, or some dimension of this story when you were working on the film that maybe you hadn't known or hadn't appreciated? And then my other question about all of that is, what do you want people to take away from it? And it's really hard when you put a piece of art into the world to you can have certain intentions and then you can't control it. The work is out in the world, and that's happening now with this film. It could be very consequential. On the other hand, as we see in American politics, it's very hard to persuade people of anything that they don't already believe. So I'm curious, kind of what were you persuaded by when you were working on this project, and what do you want the audience to see in it that might surprise them? I don't know, Martin or Maria, if you want to jump in. Since
Well, yeah, okay. I don't know where to start. I didn't know a lot about all these people. To be completely honest, I wish I knew more. And thank God we have this film now. Thank God that we got to work on this film for me to get to know a little bit more about Ivana, for example, because that's the person who I feel like I can talk about the most. I just knew that she grew up and she's been born in communist Czechoslovakia. I've been born and raised in Bulgaria, post-communism. So that's the part that I felt related to her. I knew that she's been a fashion icon. I knew that she's been a model, and that she's been married to the former president of America. Starting to do my research about her, I got actually really interested to the point of like having somebody like her back in the 70s, 80s, and being so bold to stand up for your own and to want to be treated equally and to want to demand your position and your word to be heard. And it's a woman that's been too much ahead of her time. It's interesting, it's inspirational in a lot of ways. Yeah, she's a complex character. She has moments that you can empathize with her, you find moments that you can criticize her as well. But it's been interesting to get to know more about her. And I think the movie completely speaks for itself. People are not just black and white. People behave differently depending on the situations they're in. People treat people differently depending on their power they have. And the movie itself, I feel like it's not just about these three people. It's a bigger, larger picture about a system, about a society, about this American dream that I grew up hearing about it and I grew up dreaming about it. And once you get here, you know that there's something else behind it as well. And you have to be very careful to not make a mistake and see the dark side of it very closely.
Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, I just want everyone to know that I worked for about 2 weeks in the Trump Tower. About a couple of months after it opened as a waiter. In a bistro that had opened up downstairs. That's my class. I'm just very proud.
Did you try Martin, did you try the caviar?
No, I didn't. No. And I didn't see Donald. I never showed him. I never saw him.
I was just thinking about your question, and I don't know why this came to my mind, and I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but I don't know if you remember this. Remember this Albert Brooks movie, Defending Your Life? Like, I feel like in a way your job when you approach these things is to defend the lives of these people. Like, you check your judgment at the door, and you're at the bar for them, kind of making a case for their existence in a way. And, this movie, to me, is about the relationship between truth and power, which I can't think of a more important subject in this moment that we're in now, and the sort of loose and maybe inverse relationship between those two things. But it's a bit crazy to say that I feel like I learned something from Roy Cohn, but Roy Cohn, who was a lover of poetry, there was something that he learned that I tried to get in the movie a few times, but it's not in the movie, but I'll do it now. That he learned that he used to say to juries, that I think is really interesting, and there's something to learn from in it. He said, "In men whom men condemn as ill, I find so much of goodness still. In men whom men pronounce divine, I find so much of sin and blot. I do not dare to draw a line between the two where God has not." And, we're all drawing that line now so easily and and so firmly. And I think it's kind of radical to make a film that eludes that line and invites us to maybe look at ourselves and at each other in a different way.
On a more serious note, I wanted to say, speaking of myself, sorry. Ali gave us this playground to play in, and I have to say that this was one of the more liberating experiences, acting experiences I've ever had, because of Ali. All the other actors will tell you the same thing, that he just created this space where we could live and breathe, and lots of improvisation. Just let us go. And it was liberating because it was somebody that I'd never, it was so far away from me. Dealing with the judgments and all this is, Jeremy's, that's a beautiful poem, and I agree with it. I guess I just don't tend toward that problem when I've played some really despicable people as an actor, and I think it's already been said by Jeremy, my job is to make it human. My job is to make it very difficult for the audience to hate, as far as I'm concerned, if they're doing something despicable. Not that you cop out or shy away from their despicable qualities, but you try to tell some kind of truth that Jeremy was describing. But for me, this was a very, very gratifying experience, and working with these actors. I think it just fantastic.
I think the last thing pertaining to that, and just to piggyback on everything, is just like, I don't think any of us are spared the loss of empathy or the loss of humanity or vulnerability or, the acceptance or admitting of weakness or anything. I mean, where is the chase going to go? Like, how far is it going to go? There's a hero complex in this country, I think in the world, but how we grow up and how we're told. The sad reality is that you love someone that you can depend on that's going to win the game for you. It happens on the 1 yard line all the time. We're just really okay and comfortable to watch it on Sundays. But when it's happening in the real world, I think to some extent we want the same thing. And I guess my question is, what is the cost? I've been trying to figure out this American dream for a little bit. I'm very lucky. I'm experiencing it, but I also sometimes don't know when enough is enough, and I don't. And I guess I look at this and I just see. I see someone that is just relentlessly going to go the distance no matter what cost, and it's the loneliest person in the world to me, I don't know what's heroic about that in the end, but it's sure it's a nice dance. It's it's seductive, and I think there's something in all of us from that. We have to understand. The only way you understand empathy is by looking at its opposite. And if we can't go there anymore because we're too scared, or it's like, it's convenient to sit behind a screen and say, throw stones, then it's over. So.
On that note, Gabe wrote this screenplay 7 years ago. It's been quite a ride just to bring this film to fruition, let alone have it be seen. Who wants to talk about their feelings tonight about, you were at Cannes and now this is the premiere in New York. How does it feel?
On many levels, it's totally surreal. Everything about this movie is not normal. I haven't worked much in Hollywood, but everyone who's worked on this movie, who has worked in Hollywood, I heard a lot of times they would say, I've never seen this before. And, I didn't even think, even once we got this movie financed, it was never a sure thing. I didn't even think the movie was going to be made until the cameras rolled. I mean, it lived and died so many times. I mean, we were weeks out from production, and it looked like we wouldn't even make payroll. And so, I mean, I guess my philosophy for getting through this, because when you're a writer, it's like now that I'm a parent, I kind of started to figure this out. When you write something, it's like you create something that you hope has integrity, but then you have to kind of give it over to the world, to the other artist on this project, and you hope that it can, it will be in good hands. And so with this movie, I had to sort of have this conscious experience of just letting go, because nothing was a sure thing. Even once we were shooting, it's just like it was, constantly up and down. So I think I had to take it one day at a time.
Catherine McNally's here, playing Marianne. And Ben Sullivan's here, playing Russell. And I also want to acknowledge, our producers here, starting with Amy. Where are you, Amy? We've been called liberal by a lot of people who thought that is a mistake to make this movie, and that only liberal people would do that, and only crazy people would do that, and it never gets made. And also, you showed them, I guess, didn't you? Also Dan Beckerman, our producer from Canada, who braved pneumonia and got a shot or whatever he did, to be here. Jakob Jarek from Denmark, Jakob. And Louis Tisnet, if you're here somewhere, where are you? Great. I think it's good to be back here in the company of friends.
What you said about Trump being the loneliest man in the world. Maria, can I come back to you for a second? Because the rape scene in this film is obviously extremely intense, and I wondered if you could just talk a little bit about what it was like to approach that as an actor.
Yes. Well, the scene has always been there, that I can trust Sebastian as a partner. We had a lot of communication, and we discussed everything from the beginning to the end. Ali knew how to approach the situation as well, and it was a close set. We had a stunt coordinator, we had an intimacy coordinator, and still it's difficult. It's not about physically being naked, it's about emotionally rid yourself being naked and vulnerable and stay there, even as a scene. But yeah, I think it's important to have it and to dive deeper into how people can change and how
God, and it shouldn't be controversial. It just should be sort of part of that journey,